Perfect. Perfect example of everything is working fine in testing, and then today audio is completely down. I have to make life a little bit more humorous. I have like really cool little videos in my PowerPoint, and we do not have audio on both computers, and it's probably a keyboard connection rather than the system, and that's how I epically failed with technology the second time today. Great. Usually if you twist that volume button, it actually shows volume. It doesn't do that. Did you say something?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Say with RJ.
Alright, so what I would like to do, it takes me about 45 minutes. I want to talk about the two first chapters. And I want to talk about site planning 101. Who knows anything about urban planning? You ever had a class that touches urban studies or urban planning?
We have cited out.
Yeah, I don't come. Any one of my newbies? Sorry. All right, good. We'll do it. Now, so, I nicknamed this class site planning. It's not really a site planning class, but it gets as close as a site planning studio, what you would do in a urban planning program. Yeah? You get exposed to the theory of good readings, fill the gaps in between the lines, and you try to solve questions. Questions which you will use, or answers which will you use for a different approach on your project. Sometimes they're eye-opening, sometimes they're restrictions. Yeah? So the idea, Lynch is saying this as well, is, okay, site planning, what is this actually? Yeah? What does it do, where it comes from, why do we need it, do we need it? Planning has plan in it. There are cities in the US and across the globe, but one in particular is famous for it in the US, Houston, that doesn't do plans. They're doing economic development. Plans as in, let's say, a comprehensive plan, where I'll draft a document for the community stating these are the goals for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Plans that you will update every 5 to 10 years based on the change in demographics and the change in the community. Yeah? If you have a Walmart regional distribution center coming to town, or a new football stadium being built as a massive development in employment and or destination, you might want to adapt a little bit your ideas for the future. What you experienced in the past class in Development 2, we had students go through the future plans and ideas of the city of Davie, town of Davie, and realize, wow, it's not that easy to deal with all this zoning. Oh, look at the great building, but why is floor number 6 actually as a setback? Well, the zoning code actually said that. And everyone's like, let's build 6 floors. No, you couldn't, because you had 2 setbacks. Little tiny legal issues we use to say barriers for that. So, site planning does the analysis of a site and its purpose. There's a difference between a mountainous site with slopes like this versus something flat right next to the Everglades. Different environmental regulations on there. There are different physical constraints on there. There are non-physical constraints, legal, economic, or maybe just perception. Again, best perception of whether you don't want to build a new subdivision of residential homes is right next to a nuclear power plant or the waste management plant. Huh? Sewer usually smells. Right. So design is based on where it comes from, where it springs, or it evolves, and it depends on the existing site or the purpose of modification. Yeah? Which turns into the discussion of vision towards implementation. That's kind of a hen and egg dilemma, chicken and egg dilemma. Yeah? What comes first? Site purpose or purpose and the site? It depends. For us as real estate developers, it really depends. Can you think of an example?
Maybe if there's nothing else around the area and you're starting brand new,
Yep.
Yeah.
Something else?
McDonald's.
I was not thinking about that. I was more thinking about what do you do in your work?
Are you talking about warehouses?
Warehouses.
Yeah.
So you are looking for a site with the purpose to put a warehouse on it. If he looks at a 1 acre site, all the options are open.
Right.
Or most of that. Let's just think about it. Let's give me some space here, okay? If you're looking for warehousing, 1 acre, that's like the opening entrance area. It's not going to fly. Yeah? So different purpose, different site requirements. Yeah? So what are the objectives then when we deal with site planning? We're dealing with site-specific issues, client-specific issues, if it's private, public, or both. There's a difference between planning a zoo versus a condominium tower, versus a small little park where you have the community playing, and versus the idea of optimization. What's the minimum, what's the maximum? Is there a theme? The theme comes back to the vision. If you just look here locally, talking to people, you realize the city of Plantation, that's north of the interstate, has a different philosophy and vision for its community than the city of Davie. Just think about big box development. There isn't a Costco in Plantation because that type of site reuse and size is not really warranted. There are different ideas how these communities thrive and want to be built. Cooper City is different to Davie or to Pembroke Pines, just to give you kind of the local ideas. West Palm Beach, that's its own little universe versus Fort Lauderdale. Yeah? So keep that in mind. Land use planning, yeah, site planning, land use planning, same questions. Land use planning is a little bit more than just site planning. Remember when I say zoom into the map and zoom out? Look at the local block or parcel versus the whole community or even the state. This is where land use planning comes a little bit more into play. Because what we will learn is that land use planning is not arbitrary, just let's put some buildings here and put those buildings there. There is kind of a systematic approach to the chaos. People are calling it zoning laws, where you say, hey, in the long run, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we can see this more as a residential area growth. If you look at the map where nothing has been built yet. You ever heard about a computer game called Sim City?
Or, yeah.
It's cool. I taught classes on Sim City. Why? How do you entertain and inspire someone to go into an urban planning or community planning project or a degree? Well, you teach all the urban planning theories and the inspirations about it in SimCity, and one Sunday afternoon you realize, oh, I just went bankrupt with my city. my livable space doesn't work. So how do you compensate for all this craziness? You know? That means you have to fit and design functional goals. I think that's the next slide. Oh, yeah, this is actually the introduction to what is urban planning. As you can hear, and it's really entertaining. I'm so angry about that. But everything is plugged in, and there's still one not doing anything.
Can you check the volume on the wall?
We have volume at the wall since when? Where?
The little button's right
Four
there.
times your age. Come on.
This? Oh, this is up and down for this one. I was like, yeah, we don't have a console here. We have one? That would be fun.
This
No.
volume would have been great.
I can post those. I can post those. That's really amusing. It's literally like telling, okay, find the basics on that. What it comes to, they're all sketching this. You know? Yeah, I post those. It's very refreshing. University of Michigan did that, and give credit where credit is due. This is really fun to watch that. Yeah? I have like 3 or 4 of those little ones over the next 4 weeks. So a minute or 2 of your time. Why should we plan?
Without a plan to fail.
That's a good idea, yeah. What else?
Compatibility.
You have a place to start.
Yeah. What else?
You get funding.
Hmm?
You can get investors. If you have a plan.
Elaborate a little bit on that.
You have to be able to have a plan, like a business plan, to be able to get people to buy into the product.
Okay, does this work for a city as well all the time? Does this concept of I need to have people buy in for a city?
Stakeholders instead of investors.
Who are the stakeholders in the city?
Commissioners.
Everyone.
Community.
City manager.
Community.
Community.
Yeah.
Hail the public. Public benefit. The public good. You will hear in and out in classes about planning. It's about the public good. Where we talk about access to public beaches across private property. Supreme Court decisions have been made. It's the public good. Air quality on the street. Somewhat public health, public good. There's thousands of documents written, mountain high publications on the public good. You could argue the more public good you produce, you're pushing a socialist community ideal. But we are not here to discuss Marx and Engels. This is not a doctoral seminar. No? This is the idea of, can we as real estate developers have an understanding that there are concepts and quality wishes to the community that fall under the idea of the public good. A community park can be public good. Why? Because that's where everyone is going to be on Sunday afternoon. After church and lunch, they're going to play soccer or frisbee. That's where you walk your dog. That's where you go on a bicycle ride. Some people say, oh, I have that in Miami in my condo right around the corner. It's my private little pool. The private little pool in the condominium tower is the privately owned reflection of what you're not getting there, the public good of a pool. Different in financing, different in budgeting, different in the buy-in. Do I want to have a public pool with 300 screaming little kids every Sunday afternoon right next to my house? I'm not going to answer that. Do I want a private little pool with 10 people lying around all the time there? I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. It's a personal preference. And therefore, this is the reason why places are so great. Because later on, here, a few pages later, we're talking about places and spaces. Because places are spaces with felt value, identity, and culture. And because it's important, let's give you a really inappropriate, politically inappropriate, over time developed buzzwords. Chinatown. The term Chinatown defines a place in towns or cities that is a felt value and identity and culture of the Chinese ethnic groups living there. Little India, Little Italy, Brooklyn. I made that up, Brooklyn. But Little India is a quarter, as they call it, in Singapore. That's where the Indian community is in the temple. So, depends where you're at, you have those different ideas. The Berlin Kreuzberg doesn't say little Chinatown. Used to be the largest Turkish population outside of Turkey in Europe. It's like little Havana, stereotyping here. We have places in MDC where, sorry guys, I don't speak Spanish, I speak other languages. I cannot go and have the full quality of life because I am facing the potential of miscommunication or not communication at all. Ja, und Silvester, per favor. Ja. But that's it. I don't even, I don't even know how to order 2 or 3 there. Yeah? Same thing works for you guys, opposite direction, when you go into rural Germany and you don't speak German. We assume that everyone who goes to German high school learns English. Yeah? Well, you assume that as well if you're in other European countries, and if you ask for what time is it, they might answer in a different language than you expected. Just because the culture does not support you as a tourist. I'm not going to name who I have in mind, but so different cultures, felt value and identity. The perfect place you create with that is your home. Home, sweet home. Why not then to adopt that kind of line of thinking of identity, culture, and felt value in your real estate projects? Why build a community of 100 homes with 3 different siding types, and the only variation you present is you flip this where on which side is the garage and you mirror the layout, because you're trying to cut cost. You're cutting costs for quality of life and selling the American dream of the little white picket fence, little house and all that, maybe in the wrong way. 2008 housing crisis and whatever will come in the next few months or years, signs are not good. We will see where is this American dream coming. Yeah, people are saying, okay, the American dream is actually really dead. That's a, what's it called, a pipe dream made up by the finance people. Because you're going to sign off a 30 years mortgage with a rate you will not be able to pay off, blah, blah, blah. True that, but then on the other side you pay thousands of dollars in non-used equity to your landlords, which is great because you own the property management company, so, or the apartments. Okay, so you can see, kind of the idea of this class is to get you out and thinking in different ideas. You're not going to be a left-wing, democratic, socialist, urban planner who thinks a coffee shop in fair trade coffee will top off Starbucks in your drive-through retail small mall. I hope, maybe not, maybe yes. So that's what I mean with read between lines when you read the Lynch book. Because he wrote about things in his reality with his ideals, I don't know, pipe dream or complete reality today. The housing stuff is a little bit antique. 60s was a little bit different in housing than we have today. But think about that. We have condominium towers. When he talks about the apartment block, like a courtyard, like, where would you put that in Miami?
He does say that over and over though in the first 2 chapters.
Yeah.
That his time, his work is going to be outdated shortly, and it's going to evolve.
And
Like the
everyone you will talk to in the landscape architecture business, any architectural business, will go back to that little green book in some fashion. Everyone who did anything in urban studies, urban planning, regional planning, community planning, everything that comes from the planning profession will touch with that book in some fashion or the other one, Image of the City. No doubt. There are like 3 or 4 books, planners will say this is the Bible. This is not really announced as the Bible, but it's really good. It's enjoyable reading. All right, so why plan? There are a bunch of things we do. It comes down to the piece here. It's the law in some states. Some states require that a local municipality is producing actually a community-based, community-driven, community-introduced comprehensive plan. Could be 5 pages long or can be based on the size of your community, a specific template, what you need to put in. If you have 20 or 30,000 people, I would expect that you would put in some demographics. Where you think where you're going to be in 10, 15 years. Simple as in capital improvement projects. On the current trend in your community, do you need more kindergartens and elementary schools, or should you consider retirement homes as a financial idea? All these need space and planning. So yeah, it's the law. You will see also in certain regulations that you can't develop this type of development if you are not including certain amount of housing from affordable housing rates or other programs. Huh? We are not going to go through all these different housing programs and the finance options and all that. But just the exposure that you cannot always plan on the $500,000 home. In some fashion, the law will tell you, you've got to put an apartment building for some market rates down there, or affordable rates. No? All right. Who plans? Any idea?
Environmental people.
Environmental people, yeah. Site engineers, developers,
City planners.
city planners.
Business.
Huh?
Business owners.
Every one of us on my calendar still.
Pretty much everyone. Pretty much everyone. You know, this is about site planning and land-based planning, but every day when you wake up or before you go to bed, you look at your calendar, you make a plan, you take a look at your notes, and say, okay, fine, what's the budget plan for next week? What's the meal plan for next week, depending on your work schedule and commutes? No? Is it all-time drive-through pizza? I actually made pizza yesterday. Is it baking pizza, and you know I have cold slices here at some time today? Or is it, I have a really nice steak for tonight in the fridge? Simple meal planning. Or is it steak maybe next week on Thursday? Or, in 5 years, I need a new elementary school because I have X amount of kids right now in all the local kindergartens. And I don't have an elementary school in my subdivision or in the neighborhood because never ever had someone plan for that.
And charter schools can be built for a lot less than what.
And then you have the political and the management components, exactly. Yeah? So here you have your natural environment people, special interest groups, do not underestimate those. The typical planners and planning professionals, duh. Yeah? Community groups, associations is interesting as well because depending on the size of your community or the amount of communities combined, you actually have by federal law the need for a metropolitan planning organization, aka an MPO. Do we have one here in Broward County?
There's a bunch.
Do we have a Broward County MPO?
Yes.
All right. Yes, we have one. Boss of it is called Greg Stewart. LinkedIn, Greg Stewart. Check out the MPO webpage. Why is the MPO important for you guys as developers in Broward County?
To know.
Research and planning.
Yeah. To know what's going on.
Because they regulate federal dollars and local dollars in terms of transportation planning projects. Metropolitan planning organizations are particularly interested in the infrastructure, particular transportation. So when we talk about, let's say, light rail or streetcar extension from downtown out here to the university, and have a conversation on where are we going, parallel to 595 or along Griffin Road, the MPO is talking with you, among all others involved. And if there's federal money coming, they are going to tell you and deal with you. Traffic impact study. Ever heard about that? The MPO has a say with that too. The way you design the ingress and egress on your sites, the way how many people you're going to put on the site, office building versus residential, different commuting patterns, different traffic impact. Your local planning authorities, local, regional, and state will have to say something about that. Recently noted American Dream Supermall down in Miami. Huge fear is environmental impact and the traffic impact. How to deal with runoff waters. How to deal with all the wetlands or close by wetlands. Yes, please.
So MPOs are They're federally designated.
Federally demanded.
Okay. And now,
Once you reach a community with significant impact above 50,000 people, you need to double check. They might have changed that.
So is there one for Fort Lauderdale, one for Miami, or do you know any of
They
the?
have one for Broward County.
One for Broward County, that's correct.
so,
Yeah.
Great.
Check out their webpage. There's very cool information about that. You typically do not learn in a regular, pure finance-oriented class. Yes, please.
The regional planning council just voted it down 5-4, but they don't have a big say, but they they have a lot of pressure from the traffic and the
Yeah.
environment, but they don't have a lot of say as far as the county goes, I heard.
All right. So before we go back to the book, fill in the gaps. For whom do we plan? Well, it depends. Think about that. If you're a corporate, if you're doing corporate real estate, which is actually a sector you guys should take a look at sometime. Amazon, as an example, they're doing their own real estate management. Big companies, they're doing their own real estate, asset management. Even this university is reviewing its assets right now. Like, I did not know that we have lands in California. In Colorado. Got it inherited at some time. But apparently this university owns land in Colorado. For whom, that depends. It mostly depends who is your paying agency. For whom do you plan right now? Who employs you usually determines for whom you plan. That also means, well, you could do corporate real estate, then you are running the planning stuff for your companies, corporate real estate. So you are addressing a local community as, let's say, Amazon, and deal with them. If you are the planner, you're planning for your community, you're part of it. It goes so deeply in terms of the roots that in certain communities across the globe, the planning director had a mandatory stay within boundaries rule. So you could not plan for the town of Davie and live in Cooper City or in Miami. You needed to be here. You need to be present in the community. Why? Because it's that walk on a Saturday morning down to the coffee shop or to the bakery if you have one. And you run into those constituents, you run into your people. And they tell you right away on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m., that project you guys are planning to do is not going to work. That's just not going to work. They're not showing up in the planning and zoning meeting and give you that feedback. They give you that in between the street. Or on a Thursday night when you sit down with a beer in the Irish bar, which is right next to the town hall. That's where they told you boss is not going to work. So for whom, that depends of what we're doing. Daphne, you here with me?
Oh, yeah.
Need some coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
All right. Just checking. Site planning. Did we jump something? Maybe. Or we come back on this. Oh. The art of site planning. That's how he calls it. Why? Because it is not necessarily a recipe you have to follow all the time. It's not like 100 milligrams or 100 grams of sugar. Don't know how many ounces I bake with in grams of sugar. Sugar, eggs, flour. You do variations in that based on your personal preferences. So it's an art. You do not plan every site the same way because every site is different. You also have to differentiate what's the larger vision versus the detailed site plan. You always will hear something when you go to a site plan approval meeting, oh, it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. That's short for, I didn't read the comprehensive plan, but my engineer said it's going to be okay. I think you should read a comprehensive plan to understand how complicated life can be. You know? Particularly in the community, you want to do business as a developer, you need to foster the relationships and networking with the planners in that community. Not to infiltrate the system and make better deals. No, make a better living, better quality of living for your future customers. So we have a board member who's really into Pembroke Pines. And the reason why Harry Posen is doing in Pembroke Pines because it's a really great, wonderful environment for him. And he's doing little niche products, townhomes for sale, but he also has a very great relationship over the years with the town that helps a little bit in the speed up process for the permit, not necessarily, don't want to say it that way, but it helps in building consensus on this is going to be a new great project. We have great positive experiences in the past. This is a developer who wants the best for the community and makes some money. This is not someone who comes in, puts a black box on the ground, huge parking lot in front of it, ugly as hell. That's French for don't do that design. Sorry. I assume French is not a well-spoken language in this class. And move on. Biggest bang for the buck doesn't work out if you want to set roots in a community and take care of that community with your multiple projects. There is no land available in Broward County. Remember that. The only way you get land, future land, is you pay premium now. At some point, you need to start on redeveloping and rehabbing of existing sites. And besides the demo costs on that and the cleanup, well, you can price that in. You don't have to do that. It's all priced in your performer. Yeah? But that it comes in here with the idea of site planning. Putting a new building on just green space is a piece of cake. Having that integrated in a neighborhood and making that step to say, listen, you know, there's a single family home, old stock, maybe it's time and the wishes of the community to increase density, let's consider small townhomes or duplexes. Depending on the sense of community and your comprehensive plan, this can be a killer profit for you, but also a very painful journey to get there. If the comprehensive plan doesn't talk about the idea of a duplex in that neighborhood, it's going to be an uphill battle to get there. But at some point it's worthwhile. I think the positive vibrations, when you talk to planning people in Broward County, in developers, they're going this way. They're understanding we need to stay in the market, both public and the developer. We need to do something we all can benefit from. So it's not a bad time to actually have a good conversation with some planning people. Like, hey, Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, City Planning Department, what are your goals in the next 10 years? I want to start a business here. What is allowed right now? What would you like to see in 5? Then you get into this whole thing of form-based codes, overlay zoning, all these other design issues we might be able to cover. Yeah?
Kind of a political question, and you can answer it yes or no, but do you feel like there's a decent amount of lobbyist stuff that goes on right now with cash changing hands to get stuff done?
Sounds like bribery.
Yeah, but I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know anything about the topic, and it's just stuff that I feel like I've seen portrayed in movies, and I honestly want to know if it's true or not. And if it is true, I'm not sure yet if I have an opinion on it.
It's illegal.
It is illegal, I know.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
It's not bottom line.
You know, everybody, if you drive while you're drinking, it's illegal, but people do it.
Yeah.
But as far as Broward County goes, Hallandale, the commission, the mayor in 2012 was taking money from a developer to push his agenda. But the FBI is around every corner. I dealt with a person in Lee County was a commissioner with the Red Sox, and about 2 years later, she was investigated, and she went to jail because she spent her own campaign money, which is a kind of a loophole, but she was working for the FBI for 2 years and nobody knew it, and I talked to her all the time, so it's, you could do it, but it's illegal.
Yeah, no,
I-
I was not asking for the
I would
intention
go
of doing it.
with be
I'm the guy that says when I see something wrong, I'm like an enforcer type of guy. I'm not
I would go very vanilla on this and wouldn't even start a discussion. There's always a negative spot in the world we deal with.
Two types.
It's two types. One is doing it, the other one is talking about it, yeah. It goes down to ethics.
Yep.
Right.
Business ethics.
I walk rather away from a project. I rather walk away from a project I don't feel happy because of the ethics and the style of the business than pushing it and squeezing out a penny on it. And you will see that when you we did a speaker series, what we call Development 1, and we're going to bring that back in because we actually have some fantastic people in our advisory board. And they can tell you experiences between 5 years on the market of 25, 30 years. And you will hear a lot of notion of if your gut feeling about this person, the character is not good enough, walk away. There is not a dollar amount worth it. Because you make maybe a fast buck, but it comes back and bites you.
Yeah,
With just a simple thing, which is the killer, worse than the FBI, it's reputation. You will learn here, and you will have to understand that reputation, a good name, a good track record is maybe better than being financially successful. Because when hard times come, those who have a great opinion about you and a great work relationship with you will be with you on that boat and work that the boat will not sink. And will make sure that you are going to be successful in the long run. And we had this story. The school is named after one of those developers who had that feedback, that background, that stronghold in the community. Terry Stiles was not always a great, successful developer. He was always humble, straightforward, and one great man to do business with.
I asked that because I feel like there's some of that going on in Volusia County, and it's just something that I'm not sure. Like, is it something that's popular? Is it, I don't know. And I just it's
That's the difference
frustrating when
between here is a suitcase full of cash for giving us the vote versus having a good relationship with developers in the community. And as a borderline, let's say like this, a borderline example, what if you do a land swap with one or two property owners in the community, it doesn't have to be a developer, but property owners in the community, because you need new facilities, let's say a school or a library or a little section for a new electric substation. Carve out a little piece of land. Let's say you do a land swap and say, well, you own this land, you can't really develop on this as residential, not in the size you're interested in. However, let's do a land swap. We give you a piece here and you can acquire the other parcel. Actually, you have the adjacent parcel already. You just get a larger piece. And to make this up, or relate to an old example, but making up the details, you can say, well, as part of the land swap, they are pretty much same size. There's some value adjustments. But if you are really doing this, all the subdivision and planning application fees are waived because you are working with us as a city. Something like that, I wouldn't say this is borderline, this is not completely illegal. Someone could say it's favorism. You could also say if you have a good working relationship with that developer and you're in line with all these and you're extremely transparent and say, okay, this is the proposal, we want to do that, we actually put it in front of planning and zoning, we put it in front of city council, even put it on the ballot, because it's a capital improvement project attached to that, like a school is not cheap. There are ways to do this with good, transparent communication. Again, it's not the suitcase of $250,000 I slide underneath your cup.
Well, like I got some commercial guys in my office, and they're like, dude, it just seems like nothing ever gets done, and it's like these 5 families that control everything, and you know, I live there, I want to do stuff there, and become someone who's doing some great things, and like when I hear that stuff, it could be completely false. That's why I'm trying to find out. You know, is it?
But
something
that's different.
common?
Your example right now, not to go completely off because we need to close here. Your example is more about someone who wants to develop and do something in a community, but is somewhat locked in the process because major other line of thoughts are not aligned with that. That's a communication problem. Not necessarily a legal problem between the planning entities and local government and the developers. This is like saying, I want to develop this, but the adjacent property I need for a really great project with 25% return, I need that extra piece of land. However, just because my brother dated their daughter 10 years ago, they hate my family and they will never make business with me. I'm making this up. It could be simple like that. Remember what it was called? Dynasty, Denver Clan, Dallas, Dynasty was Denver Clan in Germany. Some family feuds like that, they certainly can influence things. Oh, he's never going to sell. Why? Because he's the old man in the family. The sons are 60 years old. 80-year-old guy is still holding on. He has to say he's never going to sell the farm. And you never get those 600 acres for development. The day after dad dies, the family splits that whole thing and you have brand new development. Can be as simple like that.
So I guess just come learn more first, right?
Listen to the folks in the community. I encourage you all to go to a planning and zoning meeting. Davie, Cooper City, Fort Lauderdale, they are posted all over the place. They are public hearings. They are posted by law. Go there. Spend those 2 hours. The smaller your community is, the more building deck permits and fence permits you will have. Because that 6-foot privacy fence is a huge issue, depending where you're at. Yeah? And or the little barbecue deck. Yeah.
If back home, the privacy fences.
6-foot privacy fence, because they're so tall you can't look over there.
I've seen a fist fight in a planning and zoning.
Yeah, we can Google that. Planning and zoning meetings escalations. Yeah? All right, speaking of escalation. All right, scales is important in regions. Yeah? There's a tree you missed. 63 miles from Washington, 71 from Richmond, 24 from the regional mall. I could say this is Miami. Well, 70 miles, not really, but. This is South Florida as well, but we are built out. Yeah? This is just a funny example. This was the state of Delaware before 2008. Huge influx. 100 acres. Boop. Cookie cutter system, dead end street. Yeah? Then you have a homeowner association probably, or some neighbors complaining about the kids putting a basketball ring up there. Or just gray with chalk on the floor. You can't do that. Yeah? You drop the housing prices. Every Friday afternoon, landscaping, perfectly cut grass like on a golf course. Yeah? Why? Because if you grow it like this high, you are dropping property prices, property values.
Coral Spring.
Oh yes, all over the place.
No, they paid the city specifically.
My old house, when I bought my old house, I told my neighbors, hi, just bought it 2 days ago. I'm going to cut this grass in 6 weeks. I'm doing everything else inside the house first. You will have a perfect front yard in 6 weeks. And they're like, huh? I'm like, because this is the thing you complain about. You're not complaining about cutting and circular saws, all the construction sounds. You're going to complain about the 5 yellow stuff.
Weeds.
Jesus God.
Crabgrass.
The crabgrass, dandelions. The little dandelions. You're going to complain about that. I'm going to cut it in 6 weeks. everyone but one 90-year-old lady was fine with that. She was there with her knife, cutting my dandelions. Yeah? It's okay. I'm fine with that. All right, a little bit more technical talk. This is from two different publications, the same authors, Emily Taylor. This is the idea of if something, the existing environment doesn't work anymore, we have to come up with new ideas. So one of the ideas was the separation between the natural zones, rural zones, and the higher you go with density, and you see less impervious area, aka more parking lots, that you have now these transect zones, and this is part of what we considered back then the movement of new urbanism. Yeah? Andres Duani is a great designer based on that, who actually said, new urbanism, I was wrong with it a few years later, decades later. New urbanism is also the thriving force of these overlay zones, form-based codes. Miami and Fort Lauderdale, we just get hit with that stuff. Like, ooh, let's do form-based codes, let's do some overlays. Create for, let's say, historic districts, if you want to protect really aging communities in terms of their culture, in terms of architectural culture. Yeah? If this means that we have to deal with special districts, yeah, maybe. Gotta design this. But it really demonstrates the new discussion about site planning needs to change. The art of site planning needs to change. Yeah? Which also comes back to the idea of, well, it's one of the first quotes I wrote down when I opened up that book, is the site or the plan disturbs the site. Whatever we do, we will interrupt the site. Moving earth, building a building on top. We will do a manifest for the next 30 to 40 years, if not longer. Have you thought about the parking garage next door? What are you going to do in 30 years with it? Or in 10? Are you going to rehab it? Or are you going to demo it and put something new on it because we have new parking technology? Just that. The single family home you built is part of a custom job for your friend. Are you thinking about demolition for it and write that down, how you want to demo it? Some architectural firms are actually required to do that now. Yeah? So, cost of demolition, or at least the energy costs, consider that. Fort Lauderdale right now has an RFP open for looking for a developer how to remodel that one parking garage. Have you seen that? South Florida Business Journal just had the story open this weekend, last weekend. That's a new thing. The next generation of parking garages is going to be 10, 15 feet high in the first floor. Why? Because if parking doesn't rock anymore, or the change in commuter patterns is, I have enough seating height just to retrofit that for retail. Or make student housing or something in there. It's high enough to put your containers in. Huh? So think about that. Yes, you plan, but plan for backup plan B in 10 years. The death of the American mall, some people would say, is judgmental for that. It's the perfect example. Let's put a great mall out there with little shops and you can walk in there. Think about that. If the purchasing power is gone, what would you do with Sawgrass Mills Mall? How would you retrofit that? What are you going to do about that? Nobody wants to be there anymore. What are you going to do with that? If the retail function for that location is dead.
I'd find him to have a tenant. He'd have a tenant for it, and we'd turn it into a giant warehouse way out west.
Warehouse. They started doing small things like business incubus things like, well, need that as an office space? Yeah, sure. Here's an office space. I've been at meetings where you walk through a dead mall, and then the second floor at the end of one of where the anchor business was, it's this room like a third of this for planning and zoning meeting with the regional transit people. Why? Because that was their new way of adaptive use of the old Dover Mall in Delaware. I have to check. It might be torn down now and something new. But where are we going to meet? Yeah, in the mall. In the mall that's closed since 5 years. Huh? So think about the adaptive reuse. And it's not just retail is dead, let's put something else in there. It's like, those homes are not working here anymore. We are talking about homes that are needed for people who do not have the money for $500 or $1 million of housing. What are you going to do with whole community sections here when you drive by and run just around campus? Just take a look with Google Maps and look around on what you have in terms of manufactured homes or mobile home parks. Between here, along Griffin Road to Hollywood Beach. It's fascinating how many you have. It's fascinating in various ways of interpretation. Yeah?
How do you take into account what they say is gonna happen, like in Miami and on the coast, the eastern coastal front, where the waters are constantly rising? So how do you retrofit for something like that? If they say that the water level is gonna be, 24, yeah, it's gonna go up high, way higher, and cover most of the buildings. How do you even plan for something like that?
You move.
Migration.
Honest, straightforward, common. There's a certain amount we can do and a certain amount we can pay. Don't quote me on this, please. Been an interesting discussion recently in the news again. Friend of mine published in Natural Hazards and Natural Risk, and really prestigious books, journals on that from FAU. It's a question we cannot answer. And the solution attempts, I think, are going to be so costly, and for those who cannot afford that, they will have to make drastic changes in life. And we are also in an area where we have a phenomenon on urban renewal called hurricanes. And it's a difficult way to answer, a difficult question. There is, I think, no perfect answer to that. Simple thing. If I say, yeah, you move, because I acknowledge that the fact there is sea level rise. Someone could say, okay, just impose certain political ideas about sea level rise and there's no facts, non scientifically proven, blah, 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 blah. Yeah? Fine. I also can say will not answer that. And then someone will say, oh, well, he completely denies this, blah, 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 it's not open for discussion. It's a really, really interesting situation. Political interpretation aside, yeah, because at some point we have to deal with certain facts and certain ideas and be open for discussion for that. If you live in a neighborhood, if you live in a home where you barely make rent, how are you going to make improvements to that home? There is not really, Mr. Lawyer, correct me, there is not really a legal force that demands my landlord to put storm shutters on my window. Simple thing. They have to fix it when the window breaks, and my insurance is covering everything else. But if you rent and you don't have, let's say, metal curtains, those accordion curtains, I am not aware of any legal tenant law, granted, I did not read and seek for tenant law in that says your landlord needs to provide you storm-proof protection in the case of a hurricane. They need to clean up, they need to fix. Black mold is probably a bigger issue in certain communities than actually the storm shutters.
The home builder might need to provide them now.
Don't know.
Andrew, I think.
Don't know. Do you know anything about hurricane-proof roofing?
Well, all houses in now 18, I think, have to have impact windows, right?
Yeah,
That's just
Yeah, but that's
just this year. And before that, they had to provide shutters. New homes.
New homes.
Not
But
impact
you-
windows on windows.
But if you have some,
No, the impact windows are now.
Yeah.
They just passed
Yeah.
2018
Yeah.
this year.
But, Woody, new construction.
New construction.
And new construction, I'm sorry, we're talking about neighborhoods that haven't seen new construction in
Or
decades.
replacement, so if you just replace a window, you can only replace it with a hurricane impact window or
Don't
a
know.
hurricane impact door.
Don't know about that because that's all depends.
And I have 2 condos in East Fort Lauderdale, and I had to replace the door, and I could only replace it with a hurricane impact door in the state of
That is
Broward County.
Yeah.
But
That's
that might have been the HOA, not necessarily the.
No, that's the
No,
same
that
zoning.
was all they
Yeah.
zoning.
Because you can put the shelter
But
in for
again,
the door.
I'm looking at a lower income neighborhood, one story building, frame buildings necessarily, like literally, like look at the manufactured homes. There's zero coverage if the next Cat 5 is going through that. Yeah? What are you going to do with that community? And think about what are you going to do with a change in sea level. It doesn't have to be necessarily the change of sea level, which everyone somewhat agrees on. If you talk to the folks in Hollywood, we had this recent discussion with South Florida Business Journal, Breaking Ground, where they had a discussion group with a mayor from Sunrise, CRA guy from Hollywood, and a bunch of other folks, really cool. Those are guys that are really knowing their stuff. They're trying to be better communities. I asked him, what's the biggest threat in the next 15 to 20 years? All your success stories. What is the biggest threat for your job and your community in the next 10, 15 years? That's a typical planning question. Sea level rise. And zero, oh no, he's laughing. Oh, it's not true. If the city of Hollywood tells you sea level rise in any form and fashion is the biggest threat for their community in the next 20 years, I think you should consider that. In all the ways you can read into that.
And this is, I asked
The question is, are you going to put, let's say, stormwater management systems in place, like pumps and all that? I'm going completely other way of planning on today. But if you put that in, who's going to pay for all that infrastructure?
And at what point does it become, cost ineffective?
At what point is the cost for stormwater protection infrastructure not anymore break even with your property taxes, your income as a community? At what point you might even have to tell our land value is not giving us the tax assessments we need to maintain what you have right now. I think we're actually discussing a paper on this, on research. I think this is the interesting long-term threat. Like, yeah, you bought an old house, let's make an old car. You bought an old car, great car, love that car. Cost me $5,000 in mechanics cost every year because it's an old car, you got a here part, oil change here, gasket glue, and another repair. It's a great car. You bought the car for $10,000. After 2 years and $5,000 repairs, you're like, what's my return? What's my happiness? And I'm not making this up. I did that decision. I had a beautiful Buick LeSabre. But I got towed 4 times in 1 year as a graduate student assistant salary. Like kid, like Ryan.
I get what you're saying. I'm just, like, at one of my communities, they just raised the dock a foot. They redid the whole dock on the community, and they raised it. But then there's a pothole in the ground, and I'm like,
that's
does that
treating
make sense?
that's treating the symptom. It's not treating the cause of the issue. I think you can't. Well, this is getting a little bit fade off. But let's say it like this: if I have blisters on my foot, and I put Band-Aids on my blisters, I am not fixing the problem that my shoes didn't fit all day. So why are we talking about not making ideas about how to fix the whole thing with the shoes? Change to flip-flops maybe. So there are all the different ideas. I don't want to go into let's have a global change, climate change, and sea water level discussion too bad. There is a significant impact on the real estate community. If you're in sales, residential homes, you will see it coming. Commercial sees it already. Warehousing, there's no doubt about that. There's an open thought on we need to work this out. If you rise, it's like an island. At some point, there's not much left. I think you will see at some point, 10 years, 20 years, don't pin me down on this, you will see folks starting a discussion about, is this the right place to live? Do I have other opportunities in other places? Not just because of seawater, but how demographics, how economics change in this area, how housing market changes. I made earlier this comment about old people and young people in this room. I'm looking at both of you. 5 years, what are you going to do in 5 years? We don't know. Some folks, I have friends who are like, they are married now for 3 years, they're doing good, are doing well in terms of salary, they're thinking family. They are considering to move and leave Florida, at least South Florida, because of education, kindergarten, and raising a kid here. It's different. It's really different. If you sit in the car for 90 minutes on the commute and you pick up your kid on daycare on the way to work and from, it's different from moving, let's say, to North Carolina, where you ride your bike and have a 20 minutes commute. Think about that. In real estate market analysis, you have an exercise, a small discussion assignment a little bit later on, about reflecting your commuting pattern. How much time do you spend a day in a car? If you live in Miami, say Brightline Station, you're counting 40 minutes minimum to come here. 45, make it math easy. So that if no traffic impacts you, will have a 90-minute time spent in your car. What do you do in your car? Drink coffee, listen to any radio station. Audiobooks, maybe. Moby Dick, print version.
While you're driving.
Only the print.
No. We'll come later. All right. I will post those slides because they're important. We need to go through because I need some time with setting up the groups. You need to learn about each other in the group. Yeah? So we're going to repeat a little bit on this. All right. Site plan differences. Places. A plan disturbs the site. Whatever I will do when I move in on a new site, as a creator or destroyer and a combination of such, I disturb the site first. My plan is to build a place. Perfect place is home sweet home. Keep that in mind. And places are spaces with felt value, identity, and culture. And I actually wrote this down here, on this one. If you look at it, chapter number 2, here. A little bit more theory between regional impacts of mixed-use development, or MUD, yeah, and on what we call the grain on the region, and even the disciplines in here. The important part is this. Doesn't matter where in that concept you are placed, as a place, person, entity, or a mission. It all causes regional impact. Traffic, water consumption, sewer production, electrical use. Simple things with huge impact. I live in Plantation. The corner of my area in Plantation is really famous for a little bit of thunderstorm and flickering lights. Because apparently utilities are not so strong in that corner. Yeah? Can happen. Got a plan for it. Yeah? Regional impacts. If you open a new shop or a new mall down the street, there will be a traffic impact. Yeah? Small things can make lots of different changes. A change in the stores, in a small little shopping center, might attract things. If you put an Apple shop somewhere, you better combine it with your transit ticket, because they are kind of chaotic as well. All right, skip that. I keep talking a lot about culture and identity of spaces, yeah? And that culture goes through all the different stages and levels of planning, yeah? For those who are new to Florida, it's pronounced Florida, in terms of traffic. Duh, what do you expect? It's Miami, rush hour. But it fits into the culture. Before I moved to Florida, I would have never said, oh, depends on traffic, you make this in half an hour. Never. It's like, how long does it take you to go up the 150 miles up in the mountains? Exactly 1 hour and 40?
Yep.
Yeah, because you stop by for coffee at the shop and then you're up there. Wasn't less than 140 miles. But yeah, time is a different scale here in that region. It's a different culture. If you have dinner plans and you make reservations or you tell your friends come over at 7 o'clock, dinner is ready, depending on which culture you're at, doorbell rings at 7 o'clock or 6:55 or at 9 o'clock. If you're smart, you tell everyone dinner is at 7 and you plan for 8. Everyone had that. So, different culture. You plan differently for the culture. Same thing here. It comes on the type of planning. You invoke a different culture as well. Heritage interpretation is interesting, or tourism planning. Like if you happen to have some historical buildings and you're an awesome little town, well, people might come and want to see that. Now you have 1 million people more on your road, on your transit. So consider that. Do the different planning plans. Site planning needs objectives and functional goals. Objective is the min-max problem solution thing. Or the specific goals, and he's actually coming in later with functional goals. And the typical goals of site planning, 7 of the case. Functional, talking about 100 family homes, or allow 200 cars per hour. Those are different goals, and you set different planning objectives for that. Same thing, site versus purpose, purpose versus site. The chicken and egg problem. Angelo needs 5 acres for warehousing. He is not looking anything smaller, unless he finds 2 adjacent properties he can combine. So his functional goal is, I need 5 acres of warehousing, minimum site. 5 acres for residential, oh, that's cute. I can do some serious damage on that one if you get the financing right. Objectives and goals are limitations and constraints. There are whole disciplines in, let's say, optimization modeling, where you have a objective, maximize my profit. Okay, what are your constraints and limitations? And you write this up. Keep that in mind. Typical goals of site planning. If I could draw on this one, I would make a big caution sign here. This comes back every time we talk about site planning, any fashion. Typical goals, functional adequacy. And chapter 2 explains this really in detail. There's a specific function met with this design. Baseball stadium, kids playground, light settings. What type of design did you do? You said you went to interior design. Light setting in interior design is go or no go in how you want to build out the place. Can you imagine a kitchen that is completely dark? No. Spaces like a hallway, different light settings. Yay, let's do party, or I'm not going through that. It looks like a basement and someone is going to snatch me. Architectural background, light settings. If you want to build a really cool building, you deliver a light plan, how this building will look like at any day of time and any season, depending on where you build it. City of Singapore in 2003 was really bragging about their light plan. If the lighting of that building outside during night doesn't fit their ideas, you're not going to build anything. just a few light bulbs. We are not talking here about the idea, is this producing safe space to walk so you're not getting mugged? This is about how prestigious that billion-dollar product will look like. That's tower. Yeah? So all the fancy stuff we do see sometimes in Washington, D.C. or New York, Empire State Building, White House, different colors. Yeah. That's just the fun stuff. You actually write this down, need to know, I need to have proper lighting. I do invite you to check out a few, Christmas time is coming, so you will see that even more. Check out some of the most prestigious, more expensive subdivisions here in this area. Hawks Landing on Nob Hill Road between Broward and, is it Broward and Cleary? Yeah, no. Broward or Nob Hill, just around the corner. Hawks Landing. It's on my commute. It's a fantastic gateway. Huge palm trees, really nice opening gateway, 2 gates, massive backup in traffic at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Like they're backing up down the street. They're clogging the whole street just because they don't get the stuff. At night, perfect lights, everything set up. At Christmas, all the Christmas stuff. Like you're like from a different state, it's like, oh no. Yeah, you would not expect that. But yeah, they do that. Brilliantly done. It's in their marketing concept that they actually have lights in that kind of display. Or they're completely nuts, one or the other. So, no, I'm just kidding. You know? So let's think about that. Goes down to optimum communication. If you don't talk, you won't do the walk, and you need to succeed. Yeah? So social versus built environment, privacy versus neighborhoodliness, neighborliness. That's the keywords in this discussion when you read the readings. Yeah? The 6-foot privacy fence versus we don't have any fence, and the kids from 3 houses down the street are running in your backyard. Do you buy into a community like that or not? If you're more a condo person in the 25th floor, that's your choice. If you have kids or consider kids, or a little townhome with a more open-minded community, it might be helpful. Where your fence is like this, and you steal the apple or everything. We don't really have apple trees here. So, choice. Freedom to user to choose, let's say, the maximum own or the max out of the own habitat, facility, activity, or neighbors. We deliver that. When we design communities, we deliver that choice. We tell you, you have the choice to buy in this beautiful community with this kind of pool, with this kind of gym, with this kind of wonderful lake and clubhouse. Or you give a damn and you do something else. Huh? Cost, that's our real estate component. I told you those disciplines are close by. Health and comfort, gotta figure that out a little bit. Why would health and comfort be important?
If it's a 55 plus.
Yup.
Maybe you're close to a hospital.
Yep. What else? It's even easier.
Because people live in these.
People. It's simply the idea of public safety. Simply the design of your streets, that you're going to be okay with certain age groups in the streets or on the sidewalks. There's a whole thing we call complete streets that talks about how people should interact in traffic on the sidewalks, how parking should be arranged, etc. Yeah? So complete streets will come back. I actually have a 1-minute video on complete streets instead of 5 days of lecturing. All right. Image quality, adaptability, also important. Image, of course, you want to deal this whole thing with the idea of cleanliness, livable, aesthetics, design. We cut this short. Yeah, we cut this short because I have a bunch of visuals. Let's inspire you a little bit differently. We have 1 hour to go. Would you like to stretch your legs for 1 minute? Yeah. Go stretch your legs. Seriously. Take the stairs down to the main lobby, opposite building side, and come back.
Are you still gonna show the other stuff?
What?
You gonna show that?
Fun stuff like this? Yeah, next week. Listen,
Yeah.
small stuff
They
like
say
this.
it's everything needs to federal. And I mean,
Maxwell, nice to meet you.
Maxwell Woody, I didn't mean to, I know a little bit about that, I know a little bit about that, but let me tell you.
Yeah, how are
what
you
the
doing
secret
right
is.
now?
If your partners don't already know this,
I'm trying to get my body back to normal because I was in
when you go
Seattle.
to a different county other than Broward, you don't take your Broward to Lee County. So these families
Just
are
reality.
already hired, and you're gonna learn this in our programs. I already knew this, but it's been augmented from all the old timers that we're gonna meet. But when you go in a city, in Pembroke Pines, Dennis Mealy is the only, there's two attorneys, Dennis Mealy or this other one, this woman. That's who you go to, because if you want to succeed, like Harry does, that's the go-to guy. Because he's been here for 25 years and they trust every word he says.
The last thing I typed on my computer was with the whole thing of like, you know, understanding and knowing the culture. And my question to myself was, how long does it take to be considered enough time to have been knowing and knowledgeable about the community if you're not from there to be able to say, hey, this person's done their enough research to know what's good for our area.
Well, our guys from Miami bought
But
up
then I thought, if
50
I just
million.
bring someone on board, everyone that's a local, we always bring local people in.
We bought a project, $50 million project on Crescent, the exit for Crescent Beach. I think it's 312, 306. It's an interchange there. There's not much there, but we're on DRI, a gigantic 3,000 acre parcel. But if you want to get your ass kicked, there's a lot of money. Use attorneys that are not in Congress. You have to have the best attorney, the best complainer, the best attorney. Those 5 families, they have it. And that's why they're the family.
I have a slice like this.
Or can be.
So,
But no money changes. People make more. Right. Yeah, of course.
you got some big money. Coming from nothing.
No, I get it.
So do I have to take a permit to see this one?
Okay, how about the great Codina from Miami? So there's these
Let me know when you want to come, because I have 2 or 3 students on Tuesday.
When you get to Penn,
What do you want to
Professor
know?
Penn, he doesn't
I'm so lost in GIS.
Oh, the whole class got lost today, so don't worry about
that
it.
you need the best of the best of the best.
I get very stressful when I don't know
Just
things.
even if you can read
You
social
better
engineer,
click on the zip file.
Of course.
Yeah, but today the computers didn't work.
I'm still keeping up.
Actually, 3 of the computers in that area.
Right, a low bidder is not always.
Okay.
It's only 8 weeks. I need to know a lot.
I'm going to be here tomorrow afternoon to fix it. All right, 2 minutes are up. I need to give you new watches.
I thought we were supposed to run around the building.
Yeah, back on
Stretch for half a second.
I made it to the back of the class.
That was a quick one.
Maybe just have it on. New copies for everyone.
That for the project?
Yep. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
I only had 4 things.
All right. So the handout that circulates right now, guys, listen up. 1 hour. I need that 1 hour. Otherwise you leave today and it's like, I spent 8 hours and didn't do it. No motivation. All right. So what's going around right now as a handout is a small exercise. Guys, listen up, please. Small exercise for everyone. Personal thing. What makes a good place to live?
Thank you.
So this handout gives you like the idea that there are certain trade-offs on, oh, my perfect way of living, perfect place to live has X, Y, C, B elements. Yeah? So I would like to ask you to go into the idea, when you talk about here the best mix of land uses, not just best place as in I need that leather couch and that frame here and that, no, it's like community living, neighborhood style. And the Florida context is basically saying, okay, fine, the subdivision, what would be a better place? Yeah? I would like to say, have you guys scribble down a few thoughts on the 3 bullet points on the first block. Like, if you have to decide today, which would you say is more important for development to emphasize? First, jobs or housing, and why? Parks or parking, why? And then a strong text base, and you can read the rest. And I also would like to have you guys take a look at the second part that says priorities. Come up and rank on a scale 1 for less important to 10 most important. Your priorities, what you would say for the following bullet points. Yeah? Should be fairly easy, should be fairly okay, like 2 or 3 minutes. Think about the rankings and then your answers. Do the rankings maybe first and then your answers. Because you realize you might be more eager to say this is a 7 or a 10, and then you realize, hey, you have to write the answer differently. Okay?
So are we looking at this as a developer or as a person living in the community?
You as a person.
So not a developer.
As a developer, yeah.
No.
You as a person, knowing that you are going to be a future real estate developer. So you might have already different ideas about it.
Do I have to live here?
Yeah.
That's the relevant question.
So personal priorities. So you're writing down your thoughts, not your company's thought. You know, just because you're really successful in building affordable housing doesn't mean you live in affordable housing yourself. You might have different aspects on that. Yeah. Okay. Let that sit a little bit, because we're going to use that for exploring your groups. Urban plan. Audio's off, so we're going to cut this short a little bit. But urban plan is a fascinating little tool. It's a game, it's a role play, it's a learning instrument. And the idea and the reason why I'm using this here is it's a learning instrument that provides a controllable environment. So no environmental assessment that goes conflict or a Panama Papers bank involved with the adjacent property. No non-disclosure agreements needed to sign because you're working on a FAA approval, etc. Just to reflect the last 2 big projects. Urban plan puts the city concepts and the community concepts in plain language in terms of role play. Yes, those are prior students of this program. Grown guys playing with Lego blocks, trying to find the idea of what this is going to be, what kind of buildings they want to put in. Those are models as a Lego version manifest of a new condominium tower. Remember we talked this morning in GIS about extruding blocks, and you just have a block diagram, like from architecture, draw something, looks like a block build. That's the same thing. It just has this little Lego stuff on it. The moment you say this is like an architectural sketch model or an architecture, you even have like wooden blocks sometimes to show masses on the site plan, you're perfectly fine and agreed upon that you're going to play with Lego blocks. You're actually not going to play with them. You're going to debate, communicate, argue, hate and love. Huh? Now, there would be a great video by the Urban Land Institute with great audio, which we're going to complain about the audio quality as in non-existent or just consistent. Video in short, this is a great tool to introduce people to the issues of urban planning and community redevelopment. Because this tool brought plans for every group, gives you the idea that not really to scale, but somewhat in a relationship to scale. I have 6 street blocks I want to redevelop. One is closer to a church, one has a homeless shelter, one has a historic building. You might be able to rehab or not, if your cost structure is okay. And then you have the homeless shelter, right 9th Avenue and Jefferson Street, which will cost you $1 million if you want to remove it. Something like that. You know? So, we also have a bunch of Lego blocks, and I'm going to get a few more boxes to separate that. We have more student groups and blocks right now, but it's for the purpose of getting you acquainted with your group and starting with some of the materials perfectly fine. We're going to put the big boxes closer together in the groups perfectly fine. You also can take, once we got smaller boxes and we have enough blocks for the groups, you can take them home. Watch that 6-year-old niece of yours, she might tell you that she's grown up compared to you. Yeah? But there's a lot of discussion sometimes you need. I put on Canvas, in the student's material, I put all the PDFs. There's a UP plan, large and small. Small one fits perfectly on a letter size print. Yeah? Why is that important? Well, you could use, again, your crayons to actually sketch what type of buildings you want to place there. Because over the course of the next few sessions, I have you guys work in teams on a discussion on changes of scenarios. Yeah? So you can see they are rearranging all these blocks. Because this is a Kmart which covers a whole street block with certain benefits for the community and certain disadvantages for you. Every objective comes with what? Constraints and limitations. We just had that a few slides ago. Yeah? So what makes this really intriguing is you are competing as the teams against each other to get the approval by council. That's this gaming setup. Council gives you certain objectives and certain constraints. A certain amount of jobs need to be created, you can't build this, you have to build this, you should do that. There's a whole checklist for the council person. So one of your team members is going to be City Liaison. You know? Then you have the site planning part. All of these buildings have certain constraints in size, in alignment, parking. One person in your team is going to be the site planner, meaning this person doesn't really care what the financials of this building are. For that you have the financial analyst. You're going to take care that all site planning requirements and new rules, literally rules of engagement, are met. Same thing with the community person. There are a bunch of community letters from the church and homeowner association in your portfolio, in a small booklet. You don't need to read all of these. Once you're in that specific role, as a community person, you are making sure that you are covering all the material for the community. The financial analyst does not need to read the letter of the teenage boys with the skateboard park. You just need to be aware of that there's a skateboard park coming in and you need to cover the cost for that. Yeah? As you would do a real world planning team for a developer, you're working on a bid to work with the city at the end. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
The city has certain ideas and saying, hey, we want X million dollars in profit or X percent as a rate. And you will see next week, definitely the week after, someone will say 17%. And everyone else is stopping. They had 17%, we only had 16, we need better, be better. Oh, you still get a good grade in this class, even if you do 16. 25 is unrealistic, just to tell you that. Yeah? So, just as the financial analyst, it's not a full-blown, crazy financial performer, 5,000 spreadsheet version, what you have done maybe in other classes or work. There's actually a template out there. There's a little bit older Excel spreadsheet that has everything predefined. There's enough work to learn on that because it deals with parking restrictions and other amounts. Yeah? But it's doable. For someone who never had a real big performer in front of them, it's doable. If you have a good understanding on how Excel works, aka here's a function, here's a cell reference, here, and just flip the sheet and you have that, it's doable. You might have to sit down for 20 minutes longer than the perfect wizard who does it every day at work. The perfect wizard who does Excel spreadsheets, calculations at work all day long might get bored by the simplicity of that Excel spreadsheet for this class. But that's a good reason. Then you have more time to debate and discuss with the team on is this the right direction where you're going. That $1 million homeless shelter is going to be a discussion point. It will come back sooner or later. You also have to draft a vision. What is your vision as that team? Do we go more, let's say, socially inclusive? Are we great for the workforce? Or are we just going straight for profit? Different ideas. You can pamper that a little bit different in language. We're going to talk about that. Because at some point of time, you're going to have another team project or your company is doing a project. You're presenting a brochure or prospectus of, let's say, a whole new townhome development. Well, you gotta check out some existing real estate developers and even the cities here and say, what's their vision? What's the vision of Fort Lauderdale? Seriously, what's the vision of Fort Lauderdale? We will talk about it. It's on the books. Yeah? Is it be awesome, or is it be more livable, be more active, be motivated, be inspired? I do encourage you guys. You live maybe in the city, town of Davie, Cooper City, close by. Check the webpage of your local government. They should have a vision in their comprehensive plan or right on the front page of this is why we are cool, this is what it's about living in Sunrise. You know? Because that's part of land use planning too. We can't plan for a better community and a greater future if you have no idea how you want to implement that. I have a dream followed with a bullet list, tons of other speeches of things that need to change, things that need to come through the society and change. You know? Same thing with land use planning in your community. You just can't walk in and want to build condominium towers in Sunrise every day or in Davie. You have to think a different way to do things. Urban plan, even if it's on Lego blocks, is great for that. I have alumni founding businesses and finding the right chemistry as future partners with gaming like that. Next time you see Noah and Steve, ask them, hey, how was the Lego play? They liked it. They excluded one person. They realize in that class, this is one person we never want to work professionally. And they are making no secret about it. And probably not naming the person, but they're saying, we had 1 or 2 people in our lives during the classes here in the program we really don't appreciate anymore as a potential professional partner, because they are too complicated in the students project. Board members will tell you, students projects are great because it gives you the chance for failure. If you're putting your own money down, your own equity, then a country club equity, because you talk up everyone you know in the family to get a total of $1 million to match other loans, you're not going to sleep anymore. If you're not a decent and humble person with the right attitude to do a professional job with the right people and honor them in a nice way. Humbleness is one of the big things I learned from Terry Stotts. All right, and here's Jason Krause, West Palm Beach connection, on blocks. This guy is doing financials for Lego blocks. Great work. Huh? And you can see they build different versions. Design components, you will see, they will come. All right, all that, this is the little plan. They're actually starting to do sketches and setups, not just on the big part, that's Steve, but they're also on the little plan. Sketching, you can see this, sketching out, what are they going to place on that? Why? Next week, when you start over, little plan says, this block we built on this. This building type we built on this block. Like, build an inventory of the stuff you want to set up. Not like, how was this here, was it there? Take pictures, document. If you start taking notes from the first moment you sit down with your team, exchange of email and phone numbers, create a WhatsApp channel, whatever communication channels you want, be my guest. That's the plan, I print it out, and let's do hands-on. All right. Groups. So,